Hi, I'm Sam Payne, host of The Appleseed, an hour filled with stories for you and your family. And we're not talking about news stories here. We're talking about fairy tales and folk tales and personal stories and family tales and even a little music from time to time. And each story could spark a memory for you that you can share with the people that you love. Hear The Appleseed every Thursday at noon, right here on the information and cultural beacon of the Four Corners, KSJE, Farmington, New Mexico.
KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, here to meet your urgent and emergent medical needs, whether they are COVID-19 related or not. Medical emergencies happen when you least expect them, whether it's a stroke, heart attack, illness, or injury. San Juan Regional Medical Center's caregivers are here to provide care to you and your loved ones. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. Ten minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Monday morning, June the 21st, 2021. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Michlin, and thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM over the air here in San Juan County, New Mexico. In Durango, Colorado, you can listen at 103.3 FM, and no matter where you are on planet Earth, you can listen from KSJE.com, and that includes your smart speaker. Welcome aboard also to our viewers who are watching this visual radio program. It is streaming live this morning to the KSJE Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and our Twitter account. We are glad that you are with us this morning, everybody, because coming up in the next few moments, we're going to be talking about some of the rental assistance programs for renters in New Mexico that are available, also mortgage assistance and other programs. My guest, Henry Valdez from the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, will be talking about all the things that the state is making available for renters and homeowners across our state, and landlords too. That conversation begins in the next few moments right here on KSJE, so stay tuned for that, everyone. Later on this hour at 8:50 a.m., we hope you'll stay tuned. We'll be talking with Lewis Campbell about technology. It is our weekly segment on technology, Monday Reboot, coming up today at 8:50 a.m. right here on KSJE. And then next hour, it's Roving with the Arts, our weekday classical music program. Mick Hess will be here at 9:06 a.m. after the news, of course. Today, Mick is featuring Vivaldi's Great Four Seasons. You'll hear that coming up today, next hour on KSJE. And don't forget, of course, in addition to Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, you can check us out on our Instagram page as well. Outside our studios this morning, it's a sunny Monday morning here in San Juan County. Temperature in Farmington, 73 degrees. We are looking at a mostly sunny day, breezy too. We could see some gusty winds this afternoon, about 35 miles per hour, but today's high, another hot day, 98 in Farmington today, clearing and cool overnight with a low of 61. Mostly sunny tomorrow with a high of 97, a low of 64, and maybe a chance of a scattered shower or thunderstorm Wednesday and Thursday with a high each day near 90 and overnight lows in the lower 60s. More sunshine on Friday with a high near 90 and Saturday's high 89 degrees. Well, let me turn to my guest who is here with us this morning. He has been a guest on our COVID program here on KSJE. Happy to have him back to talk a bit more in depth about these programs that are being made available to New Mexico residents. Henry Valdez joining us from Santa Fe, New Mexico this morning to talk a bit about some of these mortgage assistance programs. Mr. Valdez, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you for joining me for a bit longer segment this morning to talk about some of these rental assistance programs and other help for maybe landlords and homeowners in New Mexico. And of course, this is all because of the pandemic, but these programs continue. And for New Mexico, it seems like our state still has some money to help out with. At least let's start with renters in our state, correct?
Yes, we do. Along with pretty much every state in the United States, right? Everyone's administering this program on some capacity and trying to get as much money of this to renters as we can. So for New Mexico, the state of New Mexico has $170 million of federal aid to grant to New Mexicans for rental and utility assistance. Now, this is for households experiencing financial hardship due to COVID-19 outbreak. right? So that financial hardship can come in a variety of ways. For most people, it's going to be related to employment. They got hours cut, or they were laid off, or perhaps they had to go on unemployment, or their clients stopped calling, and so they couldn't tend to being a independent contractor, whatever it may be. But for some people, it was directly a cause from the virus, right? From contracting the virus, or for some very unfortunate circumstances, some people had to bury loved ones, and they had to accrue those costs of funeral costs and hospital costs, those type of things. So this is for any household that is experiencing financial hardship due to COVID-19. And our website where people can apply, let's get that out front right away, and then we can kind of keep reminding people to go to renthelpnm.org. Again, that's renthelpnm.org. And for your listeners, if you're in Durango, you will apply to the Colorado program, to their respective program.
Sure, makes sense. And so with this program, have you already seen, obviously you've already seen some applications coming in, obviously, but you've still got more, and the reason why we're still talking is because you still want to make sure that everyone who needs to hear this message and maybe needs this help is getting the message and maybe can apply for this help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We still have quite a significant amount of funds left. We had a big influx of applications, right as we opened up applications, and we had to kind of work through some of that backlog. But as we've kind of started to clear that out, we're trying to get the word out again, in kind of a bit of a second wave to get as many people applying as we can. I would like to note that, what this does cover is it covers 12 months of back rent and utilities, as well as 3 months into the future. And so we really, the first mission of this program is to make sure that people that owe back rent don't have to leave their homes, don't have housing instability, or hopefully don't have to enter into homelessness. That's like mission number one. Let's not get people evicted because they can't pay rent because of the pandemic. But we will also pay 3 months in a future rent, right? And so for those people, in New Mexico, a lot of people took, they made some hard financial decisions. They borrowed money from family members, or they did what they had to do to pay off, to pay the rent. They took out their savings, whatever it is. And so we will pay up to 3 months of future rent as well. And so what that could cover, right, is obviously rent and utilities, like I had said, which could be electric, gas, or internet, as well as water and sewage, trash removal, oil, fuel, and wood and pellets, and other expenses related to housing costs, such as if you had to, if you were, in an unfortunate situation, you had to go into temporary housing, like a hotel or a motel. If you could provide those receipts, we will pay those as well.
Interesting. And that's really important because I keep hearing a lot of folks concerned about an upcoming maybe eviction problem in our country, or things like that, for folks who've maybe fallen behind and aren't able to catch back up. And it sounds like this program is designed to avoid such a rash of evictions and things like that, to keep people in their homes, as you stated.
Yeah, that is definitely, like I said, that's mission number one, right? We don't want to have this mass eviction tsunami, and it can be scary. Right now we're engaging with different economists to kind of do a study and see if the money that we have really meets the demand of what's out there. And from what we hear, it does. There's a lot of people that owe a lot of rent, and it would be a very unfortunate situation if all those people, all those New Mexicans and those New Mexican families were evicted and displaced and had to leave their rental dwellings and had to maybe leave the state, whatever it is. We have the money, and so we're really trying to encourage people to apply, to go to renthelpnm.org, to fill out an application, to review the documentation, the eligibility requirements, to really go over that and make the best complete application that they can. So that way, we can hopefully take a big bite out of all these evictions. What we really want to make sure is that, owing rent is only one aspect of why you could be evicted. It's probably the main one, but there are different other parts that are in the law for landlords and renters. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that people aren't evicted because they owe money, and they owe money because of the pandemic, right? That's what this money is here for. That's what we're trying to do. So we're really trying to get people to apply. Certainly,
I understand. If you're just a bad tenant, you may still get evicted, even though you've paid your rent on time. That's a totally different program, correct. Different situation, and I completely understand. You mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation today, Mr. Valdez, that obviously for folks who've been impacted by the pandemic, so obviously the application would have the person show that in some manner they missed paying their rent or became behind on their rent because of either losing a job or other COVID-related expenses or things along that line. That's, I guess, kind of the main point of this, right? You're just not giving money away to folks. They have to be able to prove that the pandemic somehow impacted their finances enough that they are behind or behind in their rent. Is that true?
Yeah. So it's mostly for people that are behind in rent, but we'll also pay people's future rent, right? So as you said, it has to do with COVID-19 in some capacity, but almost everyone was impacted in some way, right? But for most people, it's going to be tied to employment at some level, either reduced hours, going on into unemployment, getting laid off, whatever it may be. For other people, it may be directly tied to the virus, contracting the virus, having to deal with medical costs, those type of things. So we need just verification of that in some capacity. Usually it's going to be tied to some sort of employment document. It could be a pay stub, it could be your taxes, it could be, unemployment letter, anything like that will kind of help verify that.
Got you. And of course, for some folks, maybe because we hear a lot about the gig economy now, and these gig workers or independent contractors, they may not have maybe a note from their boss because they don't have a boss. They work for themselves, but they're not performing as much if they were in the performing arts industry, or they're not being asked to do as many jobs if they're doing their own maybe website design or things along that line. There's still some way to help these folks as well, even if they don't have the more traditional type of employment and or unemployment situation, correct?
Oh, absolutely. For a lot of those people, I think it's going to be tied to their taxes. If they could provide that tax document that shows that decrease in their incomes, especially for those that were doing more white collar jobs, like like you were saying, like anything with designing websites or providing services like that. Usually people are relatively good about their taxes at this point of the year. For other people, a lot of people were, cleaning houses or gardening and doing things like that, and they were paid in cash. And for some of those people, we do have some attestation forms that they can fill that attest that they were directly impacted by COVID-19. But I just wanted to kind of circle back with who's eligible, since we're kind of talking about this. It's very important that this program is specifically for renters, for New Mexico renters. People need to be under the 80% average income bracket. And so we have a table on the website at renthelpnm.org, and people can kind of see, because it varies by county. So it's very important that people kind of see where they're at and the number of people living in their household, and see what the income verification is on that. You do have to be impacted by directly or indirectly by COVID-19. You could be at risk for homelessness or housing instability. That could include people that are behind on rent, eligible for eviction, things like that. So that's kind of like the main components of who's eligible.
Very good to know. And there's really, at least you haven't mentioned before in our conversations, a deadline on applying for these funds. But I guess when they're gone, they're gone. But at the moment, it seems like you're able to process the applications that you're getting at the moment.
Yeah, correct. So we're working at the federal guidance has us that we have to provide 65% of the funds, or allocate 65% of the funds by September. They've been very open to communication between between the states, we have these big meetings where we can kind of present some issues or different plans for things that we want to do to help get the money out the door. But right now, that's the deadline that we're working with. We think there could be some flexibility with that. We're exploring some pretty unique options right now. Right. So right now we're trying to explore like bulk distribution. So we would be able to work with utility providers, see who's eligible for the program, see who's like based off of zip code and who owes back utilities, and then we would just pay that directly, right? So people would then get a form saying that they would have to sign some of those attestation forms that I had talked about, but they would fill those out. It'd be super quick, super streamlined, and then we would just make a bulk distribution to the utility providers. And we're exploring that with that option with bigger landlords, as well as perhaps some of these temporary housing like the hotels and motels. So we're coming up with new and creative ideas constantly to see how we could better assist New Mexicans and make sure that we hit those deadlines.
Good to know. And I guess that's a good point, too, for maybe folks who aren't renters who are listening to us this morning and watching us this morning, but maybe for landlords, or if I own a hotel and I've maybe been putting up some people who may have had to move out of their homes because of quarantine or whatever COVID-related situation that was. But, there's certainly a domino effect, it seems. If someone's not paying their rent, I'm a landlord, I can't pay my mortgage, or I'm stretching to pay my mortgage. And so I guess I could certainly provide an idea for my tenant to maybe apply for these funds, right? To kind of suggest that they do that, because they would probably qualify because of a COVID-related situation to get paid back up or to reimburse me or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so we're really trying to work with landlords and have that communication. And the first part is that we want to make sure that landlords submit their W-9 to us. And that information is at renthelpnm.org. They can download the W-9, they can fill it out, and send it back to us. They can email it back to us. Is just so we want to make sure that we can, the best way for us is that if someone fills out an application, it is complete, all the information is correct, their name, their address, they have the appropriate documentation, and then we have the landlord's W-9. That is the best and most streamlined process that we could ask for. And a big part of that was like kind of holding back the situation early was like people had incomplete applications, and then we didn't have the landlord's W-9. So with the federal guidance, we have to reach out to the landlord a few times and give them time to respond before we make the payment to the applicant. So we will pay the applicant if that's what's needed, but we would prefer to pay the landlord directly. So I'm really trying to encourage landlords, submit your W-9, open that line of dialogue with your tenants. Those that are behind, reach out to them and let them know that there's this program and they can apply for it. And that way we can, we can pay people's rent, and it could really be a win-win for everyone involved, right? So the renter gets the rent paid and they get to stay in their renter dwelling. The landlord gets the money that's owed to them. And then the state of New Mexico is really, not doing everything we can to make sure that we don't add to this potential eviction tsunami or increase homelessness or people leaving the state. So.
Right, and that's really important. And I know a lot of our communities across our state deal with the issue of affordable housing. And so, a lot of folks are in a place that they can afford. And if for whatever reason they become evicted, they are now looking for a new place, and there may not be that many more affordable places where they can find a new place to live. And that just exacerbates the problem, it seems. And so I think it's really important to get the word out about this, because certainly as the state begins to open up, and jobs certainly come back online, we hope all of them will, but there may be a delay, right, between the state reopening fully on July 1 to maybe ramping up all these jobs that have been lost and things along that line. And so there could still be those folks that are finding themselves a bit short from month to month. And as you mentioned, this program pays for future rent as well as past due rent, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So we want to help people get back on their feet, like you're talking about. And that could be just, 3 months of rent could go a long way. That could catch you up on other debt, or that could help you give you the time needed to find the right level of employment for you, or to find employment. So we're really encouraging people to apply. I just want to say that our default stance with these applications is to say yes. And that is a different mindset than a lot of programs, but that's the one that we picked because we wanted to make sure we could help as many New Mexicans as we can. So our default is to say yes to an application and then kind of work backwards from there, right? So why wouldn't they get this money? Because we're going to give it to you. And so for most people, it's just incomplete applications that kind of hold it up, and they don't have the right documentation, or like I said, with the landlord and the W-9. But we're trying to work through these as quickly as we can and get money to people. Like we've talked to some people that are in really tough situations, right? And so we want to make sure we get the money to them as quickly as we can.
Sure.
And thankfully, we've been able to help some people. I talked to a woman, she has long haul COVID, which the description that she's giving me in the symptoms that she has, it sounds really tough and pretty terrible, but it really has limited her ability to find employment and also to take care of her kids, right? She had a really hard time with that, and she fell back on rent about a year. So thankfully we were able to pay it, right? We were able to pay her rent for a year. That gave her, kind of the ability to catch up, to be able to take care of her kids and then deal with, the COVID symptoms that she still has.
And there are a lot of these stories, I'm afraid, throughout our state, unfortunately. So thank you for sharing that one, but it's certainly important to realize that this is happening in communities large and small throughout New Mexico, and that's why this program is available in communities large and small throughout New Mexico. My guest this morning, Henry Valdez, is with me. He is with the state's Department of Finance and Administration. We are talking about the many opportunities for rental assistance, and as you're talking this morning, Mr. Valdez, utility assistance. It sounds like anything that you can relate to maybe housing expenses. It sounds like this is something that you can help with an application. And let me ask you a little bit about mortgages and home owners. So if I'm not a renter, but I own my home, but I still was impacted by COVID, lost my job, had medical bills, whatever the case may be, is there something the state is able to do for home ownership?
Yes. So there is a mirror program to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. It is the New Mexico Homeowners Assistance Fund. And so that is for people with past due or actually for current mortgages as well that are experiencing financial difficulties due to COVID-19. So with that program, right now it's just in the pilot phase. So with a lot of this federal money, some of it kind of comes in this, like we have to launch a small amount of funds, show that we are administering it correctly, disperse like a certain allotment. And for this one, it's about $1 million. So we're doing that amount right now, and then we will submit that program to the federal government. We will be approved more than likely, and we will get another $52 million. But for this program, the Mortgage Finance Authority is administering it, and people can apply for up to $10,000 of mortgage assistance. And so their website is housingnm.org. So I would encourage homeowners to go to housingnm.org to review more information regarding that program and how the pilot program works. And I would also just kind of like let people know that, this pilot program is a little smaller, but that there will be more money coming. And so it's very important that everyone just kind of stays up to date as best they can with their local publications, with radio stations such as yours, and see what federal aid is coming our way and see how that can help you. And this Homeowners Assistance Fund is a mirror program to ERAP, and so this is definitely to assist homeowners who are facing the same difficulties as renters.
Right, and that's a different department, so I know you don't have all the specifics about the homeowner program, but I would assume it's someone set up based on income and average incomes for the counties and things along that line, like the rental assistance program is. Do you know that? Yes,
correct. Yeah, it is very in line with many of the same requirements. So I would to look at those income verifications, it can go to housingnm.org and review that chart. but it's the same thing based off of the counties.
Right. Thank you. Very good. And again, as you mentioned, with this program maybe getting underway, it might be a good idea to get at least into your application in the pipeline so that when more funding becomes available, your application is in and ready to go if folks are suffering from some missed mortgage payments or what have you. Mr. Valdez, let me ask you, we have just a few minutes remaining this morning. You work for the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and not everyone always hears about DFA many times but I know you do a lot of important work. The department does a lot of work. Why was that department chosen for this particular program? Was that a federal decision or something the state decided to put this department in charge of this rental assistance program?
So the Department of Finance and Administration typically provides fiscal oversight for the state. So all state dollars kind of run through the Department of Finance. We monitor and make sure that we're in compliance with pretty much all the money, including the state budget. Why DFA has taken this on is Secretary Romero is really trying to expand the department or the agency in terms of like what we provide for New Mexicans, right? We are a customer service oriented organization, right? We really want to serve our constituents. And so for this money, we saw a very unique opportunity in that we could save the state millions of dollars by administering it ourselves. And so if we save the money rather than just kind of outsourcing the rental program, if we could save millions of dollars, then we can give those millions of dollars out to New Mexicans, right? So the way there is a percentage that we could use to help offset the costs of administering the program, and by keeping it in-house, that just meant more money for renters. So that's why we decided to take that on. The Department of Finance has a great staff that is very in line with our mission in terms of having that fiscal experience and we do a lot of programs like this in terms of like making sure that we are in federal compliance for certain grants. But with this one, we decided to take on that challenge of like, let's disperse it ourselves. Let's get this money out to New Mexicans. This is something that is in our purview, and Secretary Romero saw an opportunity for the agency to help New Mexicans directly, and so that's what we're doing.
Got you. And as you mentioned, you've certainly got a lot of expertise there in the building, in-house, to be able to help manage some of this, folks like yourself, to get the word out to residents across the state to apply for this rental assistance and all those things. So it certainly makes sense to me. And you mentioned something about the federal monies coming in for some of these other programs. And so for folks who are listening to us again this morning, is there any chance of maybe a deadline coming up to apply to make sure that they get their application in? I imagine these programs can't go on forever. And so eventually there's going to be an end to them, correct?
Well, so there's two parts. I guess there's two parts to that question, right? So the emergency rental assistance program that we're administering right now is the last bit of money from the CARES Act.
Yes.
So we're pushing that out the door, but there is going to be more money coming and more money available in the coming months as the American Rescue Plan starts to be dispersed to states. But that's why I kind of like right now we're not sure all the full spectrum of everything that's going to come to us and what different programs we're going to have. So it's very important that people kind of just stay in tune. You check your local newspaper, follow your show, and I'd be happy to come back and talk about any of those programs that we're going to start to administer. But there's money coming, there's help coming, and so it's going to be a lot of people making sure that they have that they're aware of it and that they apply for the correct one. So right now we have this renters program, and so it's really important that people go to renthelpnm.org, and if they need assistance to apply.
All right, very good. And it sounds to me then what you're saying is that the state is committed and the Department of Finance and Administration is committed to seeing this program through and managing whatever new money is coming down the pike from the second American Rescue Plan related to COVID-19.
Yeah, so we're going to keep pushing hard with this. We took this, we essentially created a program that typically takes about 7 to 9 months to kind of develop all the necessary infrastructure to administer, and we did it in about a month. So it was kind of like we got the money and we were like, hey, let's start this right away. And we were one of the first states to do so. Right, we were one of the few that were able to get an idea of how to administer the program, to build all the necessary software and the programs needed to process the grants. We did it fairly quickly, and I just want to take this time to really thank the staff and Secretary Romero's oversight and everybody working hard. A lot of people have their normal jobs at DFA, in their respected divisions, and they're taking this on as essentially a second job. So it's been a lot of work, but it's definitely worthwhile. Just like we're talking about with this potential eviction tsunami, and when you speak to people on a personal level, some of the people that we've made awards to or people applying, it can be scary. People are in some pretty tough situations, but we have the money and we want to make sure that we get it to them.
Very true. Well, and we appreciate all those efforts, as you mentioned, and again, the savings that you mentioned earlier by keeping this in-house to be able to then send more money out to those residents who are in need. And it sounds like, and again, as much as we would love things to flip a switch July 1 as the state reopens and COVID restrictions go away, we know that that's not going to necessarily be the case. Jobs will come back slowly and things will be ramping up, but it won't be an immediate back to normal type of situation. And so I think it's important for folks to remember that even if they're not maybe in a situation today where they're in need of rental assistance, that if they're in the situation maybe 3 months from now or 2 months from now, these programs will probably still be available and they should still take advantage of them if it's COVID related.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have that 65% allotment deadline in September, but the program itself runs until next year.
Okay.
So there will be funds available for quite some time. And as you alluded to, as things start to open up and people are going back to work, that if they owe back rent, you're still going to owe it. That's just kind of the way it is. If you owe there was a bit of misconceptions with the moratoriums that people kind of thought that kind of erased your back rent and that's not the case, right? You still owe that money. And once those kind of start to go away, you could be eligible for eviction. So if you're a renter, please go to renthelpnm.org and fill out an application.
Very good. Well, Henry Valdez, I certainly appreciate your time with me this morning to explain this program and all the ways that the DFA, the Department of Finance and Administration, is helping our fellow New Mexicans who are in need of rental assistance and also utilities and other housing-related type expenses. I think folks should certainly explore all of these potential options if their personal budgets have been impacted by COVID. So thank you very much for being with me this morning.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'd be happy to come on anytime and talk about any of these programs, so thank you.
Very good. I'll keep your email at hand, so thanks very much. And take care and stay well. That is Henry Valdez. He is with the Department of Finance and Administration in New Mexico, talking to me from Santa Fe, right here on KSJE. Back with more in just a moment this morning, everyone. The time right now is coming up on 8:42.